the airways, controlled by all too few. It's the broadcast blues. You get the broadcast blues. All across the nation, from Nashville to Reno, the only talk you hear on AM radio is the broadcast blues. You get the broadcast blues.
Our story begins during the Great Depression. Times were hard, and broadcasting was brand new. It seemed like a miracle.
Cheer to my plea.
Pulsing out from the transmitter tower into the tubes and coils behind your radio dial, whoever, wherever you may be.
Radio brought entertainment and sports and news of the world right into our own homes. It wasn't just broadcasting.
Retained our faith.
It was hope. In that spirit, our government made policies to make sure the media protects the public.
And since the airways are considered public property, the Federal Communications Commission is charged with the responsibility of protecting the people's interest.
The FCC decided broadcasters needed to be licensed. The licenses were free of charge, but there was a catch. TV and radio owners had to serve the public. If they did not, people could challenge those licenses, and the FCC could take them away. And the FCC understood that radio and TV should be owned locally, so they passed strict rules limiting the number of stations any one person could own.
Independent community stations, of which only 6 are owned and operated by NBC.
Then came war. And radio became a lifeline.
The President of the United States.
The information we were getting was vital. We all knew that.
A date which will live in infamy.
Important to our national security, important to our democracy.
Hello, America. This is Edward Murrow speaking from London.
And we learned this new media could be used against us.
This is your number one enemy, your favorite playmate, Orphan Ann, a radio socialist.
Think it over, Yankee brother. They are doing their best to let you know they are not behind you in this war. This is the voice of truth.
What they did, of course, under those fascist regimes was to just broadcast over and over again the information and the perspective, the point of view, and the propaganda that they wanted people to digest, absorb. And so the Federal Communications Commission back in 1949 incorporated something called the Fairness Doctrine.
The Fairness Doctrine required radio and TV stations to provide coverage of vitally important controversial issues and to provide a reasonable opportunity for the presentation of contrasting viewpoints.
You have to bring them on. You have to give people the opportunity to express an alternative point of view.
Now,
it was a code that served us well.
Good evening.
Through the administrations of Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter.
For General Electric, here is Ronald Reagan. Good evening.
Then a real media man came into power.
But I will faithfully execute the office.
Ronald Reagan was the king of deregulation. His FCC deregulated TV and radio so one person could own dozens of broadcast stations nationwide, and said the free market would provide fairness in broadcasting. So they got rid of the Fairness Doctrine. Anyway, back then, Republicans and Democrats passed a bill to reinstate the Fairness Doctrine. Newt Gingrich and Trent Lott were co-sponsors. But Ronald Reagan vetoed it. The 1996 Telecommunications Act suddenly allowed big companies like Clear Channel to own 1,200 stations nationwide and program them with conservative talk radio.
Hard right talkers telling millions what to know.
That's why so many voters set the bar so low.
And looking at the 5 largest operators, what we found was a 9-to-1 or 10-to-1 advantage of conservative talk show hosts, self-declared conservative hosts, versus folks who declared themselves liberal or progressive. An advantage of roughly 2,500 hours of conservative talk as opposed to 250 hours of liberal or progressive talk. This is an extraordinary imbalance. But in places like Houston, Texas, for example, we found, looking at Monday through Friday commercial radio stations, 100% conservative talk. No progressives, no liberals represented.
The 2007 study by Free Press and the Center for American Progress shows 92% of conservative stations don't air even a single minute of the other side. You want to hear a radio talker bash Republicans? Good luck, especially if you live in the Midwest. But you might hear Ed Schultz. Ed does his nationally syndicated show out of Fargo, North Dakota, and his ratings are good. He's matching Bill O'Reilly's numbers.
Let's see, Talkers Magazine now is out. The Ed Schultz Show has got over 3 million listeners.
Progressive talk got its start in 2004, and it now seems to be having an effect. Many formerly red states that heard Ed and Nova M and Air America were highly competitive or voted blue in 2008, while those that heard only conservative talk went red, as usual.
It could be me.
But here's the scary part. Since the Democrats made gains in the 2006 election, corporate radio took Big Eddie and every other progressive talker in the key swing state of Ohio off the air.
First Cincinnati falls, then Columbus falls,
and replaced them with shows that get half the ratings.
They're out there greasing the skids right now in the winter of 07 with a 0.6 number. When I was on there in the fall of 05, it was like a 2.4.
Seems kind of strange to me that it's Ohio markets that you're kind of having a problem in.
It isn't just Ohio. Since 2006, dozens of well-performing liberal programs have been taken off the air across the country. Fresno, New Haven, San Diego, Austin, and many more.
I think it's political, and I don't think there's any doubt. You can look at the numbers. This business is owned by conservatives, it's managed by conservatives, and it is programmed by conservatives.
The distorting effect of all that was causing a problem in our democracy. It was causing people to act based on false information, to make decisions about public policy, to make decisions in the voting booth based on simply information that was wrong, and that there had to be a corrective to that. And so in May of 2004, I launched Media Matters.
Media Matters is a research website which tracks conservative misinformation in the news. It's a simple concept. Record what talk show hosts and news people say, then check their facts. Turns out there's a lot of falsehood. Falsehood which David Brock used to perpetrate.
Author David Brock uncovers evidence about Anita Hill that has been censored by liberals, her lifetime pattern of crying sexual harassment, her political radicalism, and most important, her likely motivation for destroying the career of Clarence Thomas.
Then he learned he'd been lied to.
I came to be aware that the people around Clarence Thomas who had helped me write that account didn't believe the account themselves.
Same with Brock's Troopergate story. That led to the Paula Jones lawsuit. The judge dismissed that case because it had no merit. In other words, it was a frivolous lawsuit. And that whole thing led to President Clinton's impeachment.
I just couldn't do what I was doing anymore once I realized what it was.
He'd been working for newspaper magnate Richard Mellon Scaife, who paid the American Spectator magazine $2 million to dig up dirt on the Clintons. The information didn't need to be true, just damaging. But the conservative movement also had a hidden media agenda.
While they claim that the complaint is one of liberal bias, I think, and I've looked pretty carefully at this, and I've looked at many of the studies that claim this, at the end of the day, the real goal is to disable journalism from being able to do its job independently and neutrally.
Jane Acree and her husband Steve Wilson were an award-winning investigative reporting team working at WTVT News in Tampa Bay, Florida. Then they uncovered a story about hormones being secretly injected into our milk supply. WTVT ran this promotion for the investigation.
A link to cancer. Nobody else in the country covered this. And then they get fired for trying to tell the story.
When BGH manufacturer Monsanto threatened to sue Fox News, WTVT pulled the report, then tried to get the investigators to change their story. But the reporters wouldn't back down.
They can't ask you to put things on the air broadcast to the public over the public airwaves that are untrue, that are unsubstantiated or flat out untrue. And that's also what they were asking us to do. They crossed that line, and that's an important distinction to make.
So Acree and Wilson threatened to report the news distortion to the FCC. That's when WTVT fired them.
They're very courageous. They file a whistleblower suit, and they go to trial.
Acree attorney John Chambliss.
Monsanto sends the letters, pieces pulled off the air, and from there on in, throughout, an effort is made to slant this story, to distort this story in a way that will benefit Monsanto. These folks refused to do it, and that's why they were fired.
Steve Wilson pled his own case.
You know what that story cost? 2 careers. Mine and my wife's.
There was only one way Acree or Wilson could win. Judge Rolf Steinberg instructed the jury they'd have to prove WTVT station management had deliberately tried to distort the news.
Proof of a violation requires that the plaintiffs establish that WTVT's station or news management acted intentionally and deliberately to falsify or distort plaintiff's proposed news report on BGH.
Wilson lost, but Jane Acree won her case.
Because she threatened to disclose to the Federal Communications Commission under oath the broadcast of a false, distorted, or slanted news report, yes.
So Acree proved news distortion. You wouldn't know it from the spin on WTVT's air.
Fox 13 representatives say the jury, through its verdicts, clearly stated that the station did not tell Acree and Wilson to falsify and distort the news through their BGH story.
I think we are completely vindicated on the finding of this jury that we do not distort news.
For lost wages, $88,725.
That does not have to do with distortion of the news. It does not have to do with falsification of the news.
For lost earning capacity, $120,750.
I think today is a wonderful day for Fox 13.
For other damages, $215,525.
Fox appealed the jury's decision. Their attorneys argued there is no law against news distortion.
You haven't found a statute, you haven't found a rule, you haven't found regulations. What we're doing is importing into that the news distortion policy.
And it went to the 2nd District Court of Appeals in Florida, and they bought the Fox argument that, yes, it is a policy of the FCC, but it's not technically against any law, rule, or regulation to distort the news.
What they're saying is the news really belongs to the corporation that's putting it out, and that it's not against the law to lie to the public. It's an FCC rule, but it's not against the law.
Where does that leave us as people who are served by the broadcast airwaves?
Fox 13 Vice President and General Manager Bob Linger says the station has been completely vindicated by the ruling.
Acree and Wilson ended up paying Fox attorney fees.
The road to war in Iraq took some strange turns, none stranger than a detour to the West African country of Niger.
Reports which do hold government accountable, like this, can cost a lot of money. A team of people can put months into research and travel and production just to air one 8-minute story.
To build a nuclear bomb.
They've largely been replaced with coverage like this that costs very little.
Anna Nicole Smith's last interview.
But means bigger profits for shareholders and diverts our attention from real news.
You know, whatever happened to investigative reporting? And I think part of what happened is corporatization of the media. It's the bottom line. So the first thing you do is you fire a quarter of the newsroom, or half the newsroom. So you don't even have the reporters that go out there and dig up the story. It's, how can you get it quick? And I can tell you, it's a lot cheaper to have 2 people arguing on TV from, polarized point of views than actual reporters out there digging up the story and saying, okay, America, here's the facts, you decide.
It may be entertaining, but sure as hell ain't news. It's the broadcast blues.
Media consolidation means fewer reporters, and those who remain too often feel pressured to play nice with government. It's a nasty little game called access.
That is one of the biggest media manipulations is, you want our guy? You want our woman? Well, you better play the game. You better play by our rules. If you want that, we call that in our field a get interview, some real headline maker that everybody wants to get on their air. You want that person that's a valuable commodity? You better play the game.
The top newsmakers in the Bush administration were a great get, and they were all over the airwaves as they made their case for war in Iraq. But where were the hard questions?
Abysmal. Abysmal. I think that the press dropped the ball. I think that when they should have been the real watchdogs and should have let the chips fall where they may, they defaulted totally. And they did, as they say, in the run-up to the war, it was so clear. For 2 years, we were going to war, and nobody asked why.
But we now know that Saddam has resumed his efforts to acquire nuclear weapons.
High-quality aluminum tubes.
Which is what you have to have in order to build a bomb.
Suitable for nuclear weapons production.
There were no weapons of mass destruction was the first sale. That's the first thing to scare everyone.
We don't want the smoking gun. That could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
No ties to al-Qaeda.
We do have solid evidence of the presence in Iraq of al-Qaeda members.
There was a pattern, a relationship that went back at least a decade between Iraq and al-Qaeda.
Was a lot of obvious deception at a time when it was crucial for our country, which was right after 9/11. They felt that they had to be super patriots and support the government no matter what. They gave up their one weapon, which was skepticism.
The news shows repeated the administration line.
They did indeed have a contact between Atta and an Iraqi diplomat.
Time and time again.
Saddam Hussein put his biological weapons laboratories in trucks.
Little turned out to be true. Instead of providing clarity on the single most defining issue of our generation, the press only created confusion.
The smoking gun is an interesting phrase.
6 years after the attacks on New York City and the Pentagon, a Newsweek poll showed 41% of Americans thought Saddam Hussein was directly involved in the terrorist attacks.
I don't think we ever said, at least I know I didn't say, that there was a direct connection between September the 11th and Saddam Hussein. Nobody's ever suggested that the attacks of September the 11th were ordered by Iraq.
No wonder the news media has lost the public trust.
They want to make policy choices based on truth. And what I heard is that people didn't really quite feel that the mainstream media, the media as most of us experience it, was truth-telling.
The group Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting did a study of the 2 weeks around February 5th, 2003, right before the invasion, the 4 major nightly newscasts, NBC, ABC, CBS, and the PBS NewsHour with Jim Lehrer. There were 393 interviews done around war. Only 3 were with anti-war leaders. 3 of almost 400, when half the population was opposed to the invasion. That is no longer a mainstream media. That's an extreme media, beating the drums for war.
A recent New York Times report says the media got right in bed with the Pentagon to promote the war. Former military officers would get talking points directly from the Pentagon, then say them on the air. No questions asked.
The Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld has just wrapped up his meeting with retired U.S. generals.
Talking point. Imagine an Iraq ruled by Zarqawi.
The message needs to be, imagine an Iraq. Imagine Iraq under the control of Zarqawi.
Talking point. Link Iraq to Iran.
I believe that Iran is now the #1 troublemaker in Iraq.
That's bad enough. But a lot of these Pentagon pundits were making big money from defense contracts.
Most of the TV and the radio military analysts have ties to military contractors, people who could possibly be making money on the war. Most would consider that a potential conflict of interest, maybe not even potential.
At the same time, reporters who did ask hard questions were punished by the White House. Luckily, their managers stood by them. Reporter Jonathan Landy covered a speech Dick Cheney gave in August 2002 to the veterans of foreign wars.
Many of us are convinced that Saddam Hussein will acquire nuclear weapons fairly soon.
That was based on absolutely nothing. It was as if it was pulled out of thin air. There was absolutely no intelligence, no evidence whatsoever for that assertion.
So Landy and Warren Strobel began writing about faulty intelligence, about how there was no link between Iraq and al-Qaeda, about failed policies.
That series of stories won me the distinction of people in the Pentagon trying to shut me out of travel with the Secretary of Defense. I was not allowed, and have not been allowed or invited onto a Pentagon trip since.
How long has that been?
3 years.
The chill was felt by White House correspondent William Douglas, too. He had been trying to get on the vice president's plane in early 2004.
There were some things that the vice president's office didn't like that we wrote, and there was no room on the plane.
It's my belief that a lot of journalists did not ask hard questions of this administration's policies, particularly in the run-up to the war in Iraq, because they were afraid of losing access and having happened to them what happened to me, and has happened to others.
An example of why media ownership matters to democracy.
If our reporting sheds light on the reasons why they are being asked to go and risk life and limb and health and family and everything else, then we're doing our job. And if that displeases the Secretary of Defense, if it displeases the Vice President, so be it.
Top stories every hour, we trusted as real news. Reporters joined with power and left us all confused.
The biggest scandal of the Bush administration is the story of reporters who protected their access to top officials first and put their responsibility to the public last. The story really begins with Ambassador Joseph Wilson. Wilson was the acting ambassador to Iraq before the first Gulf War. When Saddam Hussein took more than 100 Americans as hostages, Joe Wilson stared him down. Saddam Hussein backed off and released the Americans. For that, President George Herbert Walker Bush proclaimed Wilson a national hero. Then that hero heard President George W. Bush make this statement in the 2003 State of the Union address.
The British government has learned that Saddam Hussein recently sought significant quantities of uranium from Africa.
A year earlier, the CIA had sent Wilson to investigate the uranium claim, and he knew it wasn't true.
The level of corruption that it has demonstrated from the top down is staggering to the American people.
So he wrote about it in the New York Times. That touched off a firestorm at the White House. Columnist Robert Novak tried to discredit Wilson by writing a story that Wilson's wife, Valerie Plame, who worked at the CIA, sent him on the trip. Trouble was, she worked as a spy for the CIA. Nobody was supposed to know she worked there. The CIA even told Novak not to publish that information. But Novak did.
What Mr. Harlow told me was, he asked me not to use her name, did not say she was a covert employee, and I still don't believe she was engaged in any covert activities.
Former President Bush was not amused.
Human intelligence, spies, is very important. It's pretty hard to get it if somebody working in clandestine service thinks his name is going to appear in the Times or the Post or any place else.
Deputy Defense Secretary Richard Armitage admitted he was the first to leak the spy's name, and he apologized for it.
Did you change your story?
But White House staffers Karl Rove and Lewis Libby were also spreading the covert agent's name to reporters, at the same time assuring the president's own press secretary they had nothing to do with it.
They're good individuals. They're important members of our White House team, and that's why I spoke with them so that I could come back to you and say that they were not involved.
I went to both those individuals, asked them point blank, were you involved in the leaking of Valerie Plame's identity in any way? Both of them told me unequivocally no.
But Scott McClellan now says in his new book, Rove and Libby lied to him. And it turns out a lot of reporters knew it, but said nothing.
And Scott McClellan, the White House spokesperson, gets up and he says Karl Rove was absolutely not involved. Well, there were at least 3, probably 4 people, if not in that room, that watched it live at various news organizations and knew that that was a flat-out lie because they had talked to Karl Rove about Valerie Plame and who she was.
The reporters were so eager for access to the White House, they allowed themselves to be used for political gain.
Using the reporters, in effect, to carry out their political mission. And that's different from cultivating a source to get information that's of value to you as a journalist. Here you are being used by the government official to carry out their political work.
Instead of clarifying the facts in this national security breach, the media just had a free-for-all.
I think the one that always, upsets Valerie the most is that she wasn't covert, which is just ridiculous.
Was she, in fact, a covert agent was never even proved.
There is no doubt that her relationship with the CIA was classified.
If you give the identity of a classified person, it doesn't mean diddly squat. You has to be a covert agent.
And I still don't believe she was engaged in any covert activities.
He knew whether she was covert or not from day one, and she isn't.
She's never been proven to be covert.
To endanger national security by outing a covert CIA operative for political purposes.
She was not a covert operative.
The CIA says that she was.
For the record, Valerie Plame Wilson was a covert agent. The CIA put it in writing. Brooks Jackson leads the fact-check team for the Annenberg School of Communications. They reveal misleading political ads coming from Republicans and Democrats alike.
Just let me show you a few examples. Well, the Obama ad.
Corning shuts down its plant in Pennsylvania. Hundreds lose their jobs.
The fact is that Corning plant shut down because it made old-fashioned cathode ray tube TV tubes that are being replaced by flat-screen technology. Not John McCain's fault.
We can't afford more of the same.
This McCain ad is part of a pattern.
Barack Obama and out-of-touch congressional leaders' painful tax increases on working American families.
What Obama is actually proposing is a tax cut for most of us, 80% probably, and a tax increase only for families making over $250,000 a year. Actually, we call this a pattern of misrepresentation, a pattern of deceit, which is something we don't often say.
Jackson says fact-checking by news organizations in 2008 has been better than in previous years. Still,
TV stations are making a lot of money from these TV ads. We're seeing just unprecedented amounts of cash thrown at political advertising in this election. And it's always seemed to me that a television station that's making so much money off of these things owes the audience, the viewers, a responsibility to channel a little bit of that money back into checking whether or not what's being said in those ads is true or not.
why can't we just ban all political television advertising? Because in 1975, the Supreme Court ruled that money equals free speech.
Congressman.
We caught up with Congressman John Doolittle outside his 2006 congressional debate with Democratic challenger Charlie Brown.
Campaigns are just advertising driven. Advertising is horrendously expensive. Certainly electronic media is ridiculously expensive, and that's the best way that everybody wants to use. My point is we ought to respect the First Amendment. It says Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, and the fact of the matter is that part of that, the meaning of that is that you can't control the means of making the speech. You have to let people raise the money in order to be able to get their message out. Otherwise, you've effectively denied them the freedom of speech.
How much money will you be spending on electronic media in this campaign?
That is a trade secret.
It is an open secret that nearly $3 billion were spent on campaign ads in the 2008 election. And the candidates? They spent 75% of their time fundraising.
Most candidates spend most of their time doing what? Raising money in politics. And where does the money go? Right into the media's back pocket. So we can stop those practices by ensuring that candidates are given free airtime. That's a very simple thing.
The Gore Commission that was done back in 1998-99, there was a proposal that the networks provide and the licensees provide 5 minutes of airtime to candidates. That went nowhere.
Any free airtime proposal means less profits for broadcasters. Profits that, according to the FCC, top 46%.
911, what's the emergency?
Is this Minot Dispatch?
Yes, it is.
We got an emergency, just had a derailment. We've got an explosion. CP rail, over.
Okay. Do you know what kind of chemicals are on board, sir?
We've got hazardous material, and I can smell stuff now.
It was 6 degrees below zero in Minot, North Dakota, January 18th, 2002. 7 Canadian Pacific train cars derailed at 1:30 a.m., creating the worst anhydrous ammonia spill in history. Just outside the housing tract, Teresita Vallejo. A cloud of deadly gas was moving toward the town. Minot Police Sergeant Dave Goodman heard the call and went to take a look.
It looked almost like something out of a cheap horror film. It was just a large cloud, and it just appeared to be rolling towards Minot.
There's some smoke. We understand that, sir.
911, what's the emergency?
I am going to pass out.
Sergeant Goodman needed his gas mask, but it was at home, inside the poisonous cloud.
I pulled into my driveway.
911 emergency. Where's Kelsey at?
I had my SWAT gear in the garage. I ended up getting my gas mask. I got my family out of the house. They were in extreme panic.
Mom, give me a drink and stop.
My kids were 4, 6, and 8 years old at that time.
How old is your daughter? She's 12. 12. Okay, just stay on the phone.
My kids were screaming in the background, so they were all concerned. I know my wife has said several times that she was scared that she was either going to sit there and watch our kids die.
She can't breathe out there.
Or that she was going to die in front of our kids.
It's bad. We're going to try to go to the neighbors.
But going outside was the worst thing to do.
We were running all over the place. We didn't know where we were going.
Sue and Mike Johnson fled their home and got lost. But they got lucky. The Lundeen family rescued them.
Our eyes and our nose and our throats, everything was burning, burning, burning.
We were never so happy as to see a set of hands beating on that windshield.
You guys just find a place to sit down, find each other, and I'll get some towels.
Tom Lundeen guided the families into his basement. No lights, no heat, no information.
Radio, anything on the radio yet? Hear anything?
No, there hasn't been anything, just music.
Dispatchers were advising callers to listen to their emergency broadcast station.
What should we listen to, a certain radio?
KCJB Radio 910. KCJB.
But a full hour after the crash, there was still nothing on KCJB or any other radio station.
We've been putting it out over the radio.
What's the radio station?
All the radio stations, sir.
I have had it on. I haven't heard it once.
How come there's nothing on the radio or the TV yet?
Should be something on the radio about it, but there isn't.
Here is actual footage from inside the patrol car that night. Listen carefully. You'll hear the radio playing music.
312, 424. 12. I'm starting to get a pretty good odor of it up here at 21st Avenue now.
There were 8 commercial radio stations in Minot. 6 of them, including KCJB, had been bought by one company, Clear Channel. They were programmed from 1,200 miles away via satellite.
I got the radio on and just going through it until I found KCJB, who is the station for, at that time, for emergency services.
The only thing we heard on the radio was what time it was and the temperature. What time it was and the temperature. And that just gets old. 140, 145, 215, 220. Oh, it was awful. Only the time and temp. That's all we heard over and over and over and over again. And country music.
911, what is your emergency?
Minot police tested the emergency alert system the week before, but it didn't work that night.
911, what is your emergency?
And cops aren't allowed to interrupt regular programming when they need to. Interruptions cut into advertising revenue. Only the president can do that.
If we could have had somebody on that would have said, stay in your home, we would have, yes, we would. Our lives would be much, much better. We have lots of health issues now because we were out in it for 22 minutes because we didn't know what it was.
No one could reach the emergency broadcaster by telephone. Clear Channel was consolidating all 6 of its stations into one building and had cut the line. Just one broken telephone line meant no one could reach anyone at 6 different local radio stations.
911 emergency.
There's a man down in his driveway.
I had the benefit of meeting him one night when I was just brand spanking new, and he was my first ticket I ever wrote to, and we became good friends after that.
911, what is your emergency?
We are seeking a person who's unaccounted for, and his name is John Grabinger, and no one has heard of him or seen him.
A good friend of mine died that morning.
So what did the CEO of Clear Channel have to say about all this?
And you're trying to compete to
sell your customers' products, which is our business. We're in the business of selling our customers' products. And through our audiences, the advertising that we sell, we hope that we do accomplish that. It is our absolute commitment to be a public service conduit to every single market that we're in, which we do achieve in every single market that we're in.
Broadcasters can neglect the public in other ways. Take the case of Entercom's radio station in Sacramento, KDND, who sponsored a water drinking contest. Hold your Wii to win a Nintendo Wii.
I think some 20 people entered the contest.
How much water do you think you can drink before you have to wee? Oh, dude.
Can't you get water poisoning and die?
During the show, any number of people were calling in and saying, look, this is a dangerous stunt. Someone could die.
Those people that are drinking all that water can get sick and possibly die from water intoxication.
Yeah, we're aware of that. They signed releases, so we're not responsible.
The staff laughed this off.
Hey, Carter, is anybody dying in there?
We got a guy that's just about to die.
Oh, good. Make sure you sign that we laugh at that. Yeah. Make sure he signs the release. Get the insurance on that, please.
Ultimately, a young woman, a mother of 3 children, I believe she was 28 years old, if I'm not mistaken, consumed about 2 gallons of water.
Oh my gosh, look at her belly. Are you pregnant? Come on over, Jennifer. Are you okay? You want to lay down? What do you?
She can't even walk.
You're going to pass out right now? Too much water?
My head hurts.
Oh.
They keep telling me that it's the water.
This is what it feels like when you're drowning.
Just hours later, Jennifer Strange died. The family's attorney asked the FCC to take the radio station's license away. But 2 years later, the FCC has done nothing with that Entercom station. Instead, it has rewarded Entercom with 14 additional station licenses.
Let's look at it 2 ways. Either Entercom doesn't have the chain of command, in which case, why are they given licenses? Or they did have a chain of command, and they approved this. Again, why are we giving these people more radio licenses? Why aren't we thinking about pulling some of these licenses away from them?
Today, most people don't even know we can challenge a station's license. Not one person in Minot did. Did anybody ever challenge a license of the radio station here in town?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but...
Vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin sure knows what it means.
Come January 20th, when I am sworn in as vice president, you guys had better knock it off. Otherwise, we'll have to get NBC's broadcast license revoked.
Let's go to the FCC's website to find out how one does challenge a station's license. License? Challenge. That gets us nowhere. All right, you can surf around the FCC's website forever, but if you don't know the secret word, you're never going to find it. The secret word is petition to deny. Jane Acree and Steve Wilson spent thousands of dollars on a Washington law firm to challenge WTVT's license for violating the FCC's news distortion policy.
So we filed a challenge to their license, really based on the facts that came out in our case. Nothing new here. We filed that in January of 2005. And here we are, many years later. The FCC has not ever gotten back to us with anything. They've not responded. They've not sent us a thanks for sending your complaint, we're looking into it, email, letter, nothing, zero, absolutely nothing. And you understand the whole premise that the airwaves are a precious commodity. There are very few of them. So to get these licenses, broadcast licenses for free, broadcasters are supposed to act in the public interest. It's the deal they make for getting that privilege. That's their mandate. And that's what the FCC is supposed to be overseeing. I haven't seen any evidence of it.
Okay, time for a little more information about the FCC. 5 commissioners head the FCC. The president chooses 3 from his own party and 2 from the opposing party. It was President Bush who set the agenda through 2008. In 2003, Bush appointee Michael Powell tried to consolidate the media even further.
And wrote rules that match the times.
If they got away with what they wanted to do, you can end up in a community where you have one large corporation owning the daily newspaper, radio stations, television stations, the cable outlet, in one community.
Their profits would go through the roof. I mean, they could strip down to one newsroom without any competition.
Now you tell me that that sounds like democracy.
It didn't look good. 3 of the 5 members of the FCC were Republican. They were all pretty much on the record as saying, even before we consider any evidence, we want to get rid of these rules. I mean, they'd gotten their marching orders.
But the public found out and rose up against the new rules.
We understand we got about 3 million people to weigh into the FCC. That's almost, 1 in every 100 Americans. I didn't even think that many people knew there was an FCC, let alone how to get their information to us, but they did. They were really concerned about this.
Powell's FCC approved consolidation anyway.
I believe we did our job, and I believe we did it well.
But grassroots media reform activists had a surprise for him.
So when the FCC clearly didn't listen to the American public, we knew that it was our time to act. And so with the Media Access Project and many other plaintiffs who joined onto our case, we told the FCC that we would sue them, and we took it all the way to the 3rd District Court of Appeals in Philadelphia.
The Court of Appeals in Philadelphia reversed the FCC's decision and directed it to conduct a do-over.
That do-over meant the FCC had to hold more public hearings about consolidation. They held 6 between October 2006 and November 2007. People spoke about corporate media keeping popular musicians off the air.
What really is the travesty of it is all these fans and all these people that have grown up in these communities listening to those radio stations, it's just gone. To me, that is just the most anti-American thing I've ever heard of in my life. I think it's awful.
It's altogether such a different business that they boss you around like you're a piece of trash or something. They don't treat you like an artist.
About the demise of independent producers in Hollywood.
However, the days of independent producers taking his or her creative vision on a series or movie of the week to completion is a thing of the past.
Democrats and Republicans joined in opposition to more consolidated media.
But a competitor can start a local bank or a restaurant. You just can't go in and start a radio or TV station because the airwaves are finite. And not only are they finite, they're owned not by the seller but by the people.
But on December 18th, 2007, the Republican members of the FCC voted to allow broadcasters and newspapers in the same town to have the same owner.
Allowing cross-ownership may help to forestall the erosion in local news coverage by enabling companies to share these local news gathering costs across multiple media platforms. Today's order amends the 32-year-old absolute ban on newspaper broadcast cross-ownership.
Last time the Commission went down this road, the majority heard and felt the outrage of millions of citizens in Congress and then the court.
And they're hearing from citizens once again. There's a new lawsuit from Prometheus Radio and Media Access Project and a resolution to disapprove the FCC vote by the U.S. Senate.
We have visited this issue previously. I think there is too much concentration in the media, and the FCC rule moves in exactly the wrong direction, adding more concentration.
Preventing more media consolidation is a bipartisan effort.
Hey, look, this is not a partisan issue.
We had multiple votes on both sides of the aisle in the Commerce Committee when this was last discussed, so there were people on the Republican side and the Democratic side that
it's not a partisan issue at all.
Not so with the Fairness Doctrine. Republicans are trying to make sure the FCC can never bring it back.
So what does your legislation do?
The Broadcaster Freedom Act, which I'm happy to report is now co-sponsored by every single Republican member of the House of Representatives, and at this taping, one Democrat, would simply do this. It would take the power away from the Federal Communications Commission to restore the Fairness Doctrine without an act of Congress.
But there are new battles yet to be waged. Time after time, at hearing after hearing, people complain about licensing.
You must require at least half of all broadcast licenses in every market to go to local interest, local control. Doing otherwise violates the public trust you vow to honor.
And I'd like to say that broadcasting is a lot like driving. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And if I get caught driving recklessly, endangering the public, I lose my license. It doesn't matter if I own 1,200 cars. Okay? Okay.
They don't have the right to do this on the public airwaves. Take their licenses. It's pending before you right now. How many people here would like to see Clear Channel lose 6 licenses for this kind of broadcasting?
Jane Acree took her turn at the mic at the FCC hearing in Tampa, where WTVT is licensed.
In January of 2005, my husband and I challenged the operating license of the Fox Zone station right here in Tampa. We had proven in court the top ranks of management engaged in news distortion. Resisting had cost us our jobs. More than 2 years later, we have yet to receive any response from the FCC on the status of that complaint.
So why is the FCC ignoring license challenges? It's the only tool the public has to hold stations accountable. I called the FCC to learn how many petitions to deny licenses they have, and also when's the last time they revoked any station's license. I have been told that since 1996, virtually no licenses have been revoked at all. And I'm trying to confirm or deny that. Hi, Mary. It's Sue Wilson, Broadcast Blues. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. I'm following up on our conversation of, I don't know when it was, a week or so ago. In terms of the numbers of petitions to deny, though, somebody's got to have it, Mary. I mean, with all due respect, the only people who would have it would be the FCC. But it seems to me that they're not taking these petitions to deny very seriously if they don't even know how many they're getting. Very good, thanks. Oh, she is not happy with me at all. But she just keeps saying, I've asked the question and we don't have that information. And that is, if they don't have it, who would? And she said, if you want to file a Freedom of Information Act request, go right ahead. So that's going to be the next step, boys and girls. The press and public can use Freedom of Information Act requests to demand information from the government. They have 20 business days to respond. In the meantime, Jane Acree finally got her response from the FCC's Media Bureau. Remember how, for Acree to win her case, the judge told the jury she'd have to prove the station deliberately tried to distort the news. And then WTVT said this.
I think we are completely vindicated on the finding of this jury.
The FCC said they were confused whether WTVT distorted the news. And in any case, they would not be bound by some state court's decision. Her petition to deny had been denied.
And if you stand up to the FCC, all you hear back is BFD no more.
Commissioners, I'm a broadcast journalist of 20 years, currently making a film about media issues called Broadcast Blues. On July 16th of this year, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with your Media Bureau to find out how many petitions to deny broadcast licenses are currently pending in front of the FCC. I also asked, when is the last time any station ever had a license taken away? By law, the FCC is to respond to me within 22 days. It has been 4 months. I have heard nothing. The petitions to deny licenses are the only means that we the people have to hold stations accountable to the public interest. If you will not stand up for we the people, then I have news for you. We the people are standing up for ourselves. This is our media, and we are taking it back.
Gotta take it back. One choice you're gonna make.
What's it gonna take? The democracy's at stake.
We're taking it back in our schools.
The first thing I do is I hand cameras to students and I get a sense of the power in the camera. Because you know what? You can change the world with these things.
We're taking it back for reporters.
If this FCC rule change goes through, St. Louis
could end up with just one newspaper and one TV station, all owned by the same company.
We're fighting for the internet before big media can control that.
Keep the internet open.
We're putting up our own low-power radio towers. Remember, the airwaves belong to us. If we, the people, don't take the media back, no one will.
No more broadcast blues. Say no more broadcast blues. We got everything to lose. Say no more broadcast blues. It's the people who choose the leaders who rule. Say no more broadcast blues. No more broadcast blues. Say no more broadcast blues. We got everything to lose. No more broadcast blues. We got everything to lose. No more broadcast blues.
If you're interested in health care and you're interested in environment and you want that to be your number one issue, fine. But a piece of advice from me is to make media reform your number two issue, because you're not going to get anywhere on number one until you do something on the media reform.
All the people. All the people.
If you're just one man trying to be, and they come and smash your rights, and everyone can see. Most people look and don't seem to care if you be, but if you got even one good friend, a little Samaritan, you got some security, 'cause all the people could keep each other free. And everyone's got just a little responsibility. In most countries they have a law to see you have a right, but if you don't watch carefully, you may have to put up a fight. So you must watch carefully if you want to stay free. If you get a chance today to help your brother, I hope you're not waiting or even hoping for another. 'Cause if you're waiting till it gets a little closer to the last judgment day, you're mistaken, my friend, don't you see it's today that all the people can keep each other free. And everyone's got just a little responsibility, yeah. Who's got the power? Who really has control? The judge don't have it. The chairman, the president, the prime ministers, they don't know. All the people must exercise control. 'Cause all the people sharing the same soul, yeah. Tout le monde, all the people, todas las personas, all the people, now road, all the people. to buy